Hello and welcome to the next episode of Nick's Vintage Book Chat. Um, the book I'm going to be talking about this week it's not a crime or a detective story, which they've all been so far. It's a little bit different. I suppose you class it as a romance or a love story. It's really about people and relationships. Um, and it's by Angela Thirkell, and it's called Ankle Deep. Published in 1933 originally. I believe it was Angela Thirkell's very first published novel. And it kind of shows, to be fair. I read it, but I struggled with it, I've got to admit. At the centre of the story is a relationship, or a non-relationship really, between Mrs. Aurea Palgrave and Valentine Ensor. Aurea Palgrave is visiting her parents in London from Canada, where she lives with her husband and two children. She's come over on her own. The husband and children are still in Canada. She's unhappily married. Don't really say why, but it sounds a bit of a bore, the husband. So she comes over to visit her parents for quite a long break, for a long time. Remember, in those days, you couldn't just nip across to Canada, could you, and back again. You had to come over on steamer. I think it took probably 2 or 3 weeks, did it? So I suppose you had to stay for a while when you came. And she's staying for a few months with her parents. At an house party, which they always seem to be going to, she meets this gentleman, Valentine, and they instantly fall in love with each other at first sight. Head over heels in love. I'm not sure why, because the way he's described in the book, it's not very flattering. It don't exactly sound like George Clooney, let's put it that way. But Aurea falls for him. It's a bit of a he works in a bank, but he's a confirmed bachelor, and he seems to spend all his time gadding about town with different young women and offloading them when he gets bored with them. He pretty much says that himself in books. That's the sort of fella he is, a bit of a gadabout, a bit of a Don Juan, I suppose you'd call him. Aurea is very immature, childlike. She doesn't seem to have had much life experience. She's got 2 children who she loves very deeply, so she says, and she's got no intention of leaving her husband or her children. She's got every intention of going back to Canada at the end of the visit. But while she's in visiting the parents, once she meets this Valentine, they spend all the time together, but desperately trying not to do anything that will damage their reputations. I think Valentine's not particularly interested in his reputation, I think. But Aurea, as a married woman, obviously in those days, early 1930s, for a married woman to have an affair would bit of a no-no in those days. Pretty much frowned upon. So they spend a lot of time together, holding hands in back to taxis, and him trying to be a gentleman and not take it any further. But they're constantly professing their deep love for each other, and even though he's got loads of different women on a string, he seems to have fallen for Aurea in a big way. So that's the central relationship and just how it pans out basically throughout the book. There's other peripheral characters as well. The lady who we meet at the start of the book, called Fanny, she's married to a pretty boring bloke called Arthur, to be honest, and she's a real scheming minx. She don't work, she don't seem to do anything, to be honest, apart from gad about town with different fellas, and her husband seems to be quite happy for her to do this. In fact, he seems to encourage it. and Fanny seems to spend a lot of the book matchmaking, and for some reason she seems to want to get her husband into a compromising position with a woman. Whether she thinks this will give her some kind of hold over him, I don't know, but I just found it very odd. But the fella's that boring that the way with the fairies, really, when it comes to stuff like that, that he just she finds it impossible to line him up and catch him. So there's that going on as well, and there's other characters, Aria's mum and dad, who seem like nice people, to be fair, probably nicest people in the book. As I say, it was a bit of a slog. I struggled with it. I did finish it. It took me a while. It's very well written. It's a well written book, but it's stodgy. It plods along at a, you're just reading it sometimes and you think, oh God, just get on with it. So it's not the greatest book I've ever written. The characters are very, Fanny especially is very shallow, vain. They don't seem to do anything. They just seem to spend all the time every night going to dinner, and then on to theatre or a nightclub, and then supper. They spend all the time eating and drinking. That's all they seem to do. Yeah, they must have been massive. But it's a difficult book to relate to for the modern reader, I think. Obviously, it's nearly 100 years ago when this was set. Life, maybe there were people like this who lived lives like this. I'm sure there were. I couldn't personally relate to it. As a modern man and a modern reader, I just thought, what a shallow, uninteresting life these people read. And when you read a good book, you really get invested in the characters, and you wanted to know what happens to them, and you're rooting for them. But with these, I just couldn't care less, to be honest. I just wanted to get to end of book and say I'd finished it. So I can't recommend it really. It's a great cover. That's one of the reasons I bought it. I love all the books, all the covers. Great artwork. I assume that's supposed to be Valentine with a bunch of roses there. And this lady at front who looks a bit like Kay Kendall, the old 1950s actress. I don't know if you remember her. She was in Genevieve. Looks a bit like her up front. I think that's meant to be Aria, but that's not how I picture her from the book, from her description at all. She looks more like Fanny to me. But it's a great cover, and what I noticed is there's no credit for the artwork. The artist. There's modern novels, when they've got photograph or artwork on front, they're always credited to somebody, aren't they? There's no credit anywhere in here for whoever did that cover. So it's a shame, really, because it's a nice cover. Another thing that I like about it, that I love about old books, it's got the inscription on title page, which just says Molly from Isabel, Christmas 51. So Isabel got this as a Christmas present in 1951. I'm sure. I wonder how many hands this book has passed through before it's found its way to me. I want to end on a bit of a more positive note. I've read other Angela Thirkell's books, and they are brilliant. I didn't enjoy this one, but Wild Strawberries, August Folly, and Eye Rising. And as you can see, these are modern reprints, so they're easy to get hold of. These three are excellent books. They're very different to the one I've just been talking about. They're very light, very comedic, very satirical. They're set in the countryside, in villages, and the characters, they're more well-rounded, they're more relatable, more likeable, if you like. But I don't want to put you off reading Angela Thirkell by not talking very nicely about the book Ankle Deep, because her other books that I've read these three, they are excellent books. If you can find some of her other novels, they're really well worth reading. But very much, if you like Jane Austen, try her. Very, very much in the vein of Jane Austen. Very light tone, very, as I say, a lot of satire in it, and a lot of comedy. If you can, that you can catch while you're reading them. So don't let me put you off reading Angela Thirkell. She's well worth seeking out. Some of her books, the modern reprints, are really well worth reading. So as for Ankle Deep, it's a no from me for this one. Sorry, Angela. But the other books, the other Angela Thirkell books, well worth reading. So please don't let me put you off by not liking this one. And Angela Thirkell herself, she very interesting person. She born in 1890, and she was very well connected. She was related to Edward Burne-Jones, the artist, and distantly to Stanley Baldwin, the Prime Minister, early 20th century Prime Minister, and Rudyard Kipling. She was a distant cousin to as well. And her godfather was J.M. Barrie, Peter Pan author. So very interesting woman. But Ankle Deep, sorry, just can't recommend that for you. But thanks for watching this week, and I'll see you next time. Toodle pip.